Hello and welcome to another Small Gold live stream. It is Wednesday, the 20th of November, 2019, and tonight's topic is Eastern European gold reserves swell as Western European gold reserves stagnate. Today is the day, the 20th, that Russia, the Central Bank of Russia, announces its most updated gold reserve holdings. And today, they did not disappoint. They indeed reported again. And Russia reported, the Central Bank of the Federation of Russia reported, adding another 300,000 ounces of gold to reserves. Now, it's a little bit low for them, but it's still a substantial amount of gold. It's a little under 10 tons. And we're going to go through the Russian gold reserves and the amounts that they've been buying. We've got some charts to show you. But one of the things that is significant is not that Russia is buying gold. They've been buying gold for the last perhaps a decade, and we're going to show you some charts on the gold purchases. But one of the things that the gold pumpers have been saying is central banks are buying gold. That is all I need to know. And they were really just reporting on, or not reporting on, referring to central bank aggregate numbers, meaning how much Russia bought and how much the Central Bank of China bought, the People's Republic of China bought, and then also Kazakhstan. Now, I was not too impressed with the fact that those three countries are adding gold, and therefore it looked like the central banks in general were buying gold, because they weren't. Each of those countries has a specific reason to buy gold, and we'll go through them quickly. Kazakhstan, because it has a newly developed gold mining industry within its borders, and it has a very horrible currency, and it makes sense that it's on the border with Russia for it to buy gold from its own mines to support the industry. Russia, very similar, but even more reason to buy gold. Not only is it the third largest gold producer in the world, it has issues with the US dollar because it has issues with the United States and other Western countries because it is under sanctions, and it does very little trade with the U.S. So if you're going to have reserves, why not have them in gold, especially if you produce a lot of gold? And we're going to show you some charts on that. People's Bank of China, similar in that they are the #1 gold producing nation in the world, so why not add that gold to your reserves? And also because it does have, I suppose, some designs on becoming a reserve currency at some day in the future, and having a lot of gold is not going to hurt China's ambitions in that regard. So, I did not ever view those three banks as buying gold as any type of significant issue, meaning that that was going to provide, that it was some type of inside knowledge. They knew what was coming and it's game over and game changer and gold set to skyrocket. Because what those countries are doing, because they had very rational reasons to buy gold. Uzbekistan is another one. They have a gold mining industry in their nation, and again, they have a very bad currency just like Kazakhstan, so why not swell your gold reserves at your central bank with your own supply? But we've noted over time that the following countries, the world's largest gold reserve countries holding gold, have not been buying gold at all. And in fact, one of the countries has been selling gold, and that is Germany. Germany is the second largest country according to official numbers. Now, whatever you take into account, whatever grain of salt you might want to give those numbers, Germany is officially the second largest holder of gold by central bank. And they have 3,370 tons, and I believe that number is down now to about 3,366. And the reason for that is every year for the last 20 years, Germany's been selling about 4 tons of gold, and they're selling it to their own government so they can mint coins. Point being is Germany's not adding gold. They made a big stink about repatriating gold from France, Bank of France, and Bank of England, and the New York Fed, but they haven't added any gold. Similarly, Italy and France have not added any gold for decades. They are the third and fourth largest gold holders. We already talked about Russia and China. Switzerland, not adding any gold. Switzerland actually used to have over 2,000 tons of gold. They sold a lot of that gold in early 2000s when they joined the IMF. Japan, 765 tons of gold. They haven't added any gold for decades, nor has the Netherlands. nor has Belgium, and nor has the United Kingdom, nor has Portugal, and nor has Spain. So all of the Western European countries, at most, all they've done is either talked about or actually repatriated gold. Austria is another country that has not added any gold, but was talking about repatriation, as was Belgium. The Netherlands and Germany actually succeeded in repatriating some gold, but again, they did not add any gold. So when people talked about central banks are buying gold, that is all I need to know, and they were referring to a general statement about central banks, it really was just Russia, China, and Kazakhstan that were adding gold. The rest of the countries were not. However, that has changed. Most recently, Serbia has announced not only did they just add 8 tons of gold to reserves, but their president says to brace for crisis. I mean, Serbia's president said that its central bank should continue to buy gold, and Serbia just bought 8 tons of gold. And let me tell you some of the quotes here, what he said. The president's name is Alexander Vucic. And he says that the nation has to fortify itself against economic crisis. I think we'll continue adding gold because that is what we see in which direction the world is moving. It's a very Eastern European way of saying things. And he cited slowing growth in the euro area, this according to Bloomberg. And the central bank governor said that Serbia paid about $434 million for the gold that it bought recently at $1,500 and $3 an ounce. And now 10% of its total reserves are in gold. So Serbia now becoming part of the gold holding nations in Eastern Europe that are adding gold. Serbia now has, they don't have that much gold, but they are in the, let me tell you exactly where they are in this whole scheme of things. I think they now have 29 tons. They rose their gold holdings from 18 tons to 29 tons, and the president is saying you gotta add more. Now, we're talking about Eastern Europe. Let's go through the Eastern European nations. We just rattled off all the Western European nations, pretty much all of them, and none of them are adding or have added any gold, and Germany actually has been selling gold. Let's go through them pretty much in alphabetical order and see what the Eastern European banks are doing. Belarus, since 2016, went from 43 tons to 48.6 tons. Now, that's not a bad amount of gold to have, and that puts them, it doesn't put them way up on the list. It puts them at 48th, but they have 26% of their reserves in gold. The next one, Czech Republic. Now, they've sold a little gold, but Czech Republic is a small country. 9.9 tons they had in January 2016, and now they have 8.2. So they are a net seller of gold. Croatia has no gold. The country of Croatia has no gold, and they had no gold in January of 2016, and they ain't got any now. Estonia, same thing. No gold, 0.2 tons in January 2016. They've got 0.2 tons. However, Hungary, Central European nation of Hungary, back in January of 2016 at 3.1 tons. They made a whopping purchase last year of about almost 30 tons. They now have 31.5 tons of gold. That is a very big increase, although they haven't really added any since then, but very significant that they went out 1 month, I think it was in the fourth quarter of 2018, and they just tacked on another 30 tons of gold. So now Hungary has over 31 tons. That puts them in like 57th place behind the Slovak Republic, who is also at around 31.5 tons, but they haven't added any gold. Moving on, Latvia has not added any gold. They have 6.6 tons. Lithuania has not added any gold since January 2016. They've got 5.8 tons. But Poland has more than doubled its gold reserves. Poland had 102 tons of gold in January 2016 and now has 228 tons of gold. That's a significant amount of gold. That puts Poland in 23rd place behind Austria. Poland's gold reserves are now 9% of gold reserves. Russia, and we're going to go through Russia's gold reserves extensively in a minute, had 1,460 tons of gold. They were just barely in the top 10 just a couple of years ago, and now they have 2,252 tons of gold after adding 9 tons of gold in October, announced today. So Russia now has 2,252 tons. They are ahead of the People's Bank of China. They are right behind France and Italy, and if they continue this pace in the next year or so, they will be in third place, right behind Germany in terms of gold held by central banks. Serbia, we just mentioned, added 8 tons of gold. They now have 29 tons of gold. Back in January of 2016, they only had 18.3 tons. The Slovak Republic we mentioned, steady at 31.7 tons. Slovenia, steady at 3.2 tons. And the Ukraine sold about 0.6 tons of gold, reducing their gold holdings from January 2016 from 25.2 tons to 24.6. So, to recap, no Western central bank has added gold in the last 20-25 years. Indeed, Germany has sold 30-40 tons over the last 20 years. But Eastern European banks, Belarus, Russia, Serbia, Hungary, and Poland have all added gold. Now, why are Eastern European countries that are not gold producers adding gold? Well, Eastern European countries are late additions to the European Union, late additions in some instances to the Euro. They are formerly Soviet satellite states. So I think they're more accustomed to being concerned about a few things. They're concerned about a foreign power dominating their domestic economics. We've seen Hungary and Poland put up resistance to European Union immigration policies from the top, not at the grassroots level, but from their presidents prohibiting or setting up walls or fences. And it appears that the Central European nations are much more suspicious of the European Central Bank. They've indeed said, I think it was the Hungarian president or the Polish president, one of the Eastern European countries said that countries should be allowed to opt out of the euro. So the Eastern European countries, late additions to the European Union and the euro, are not as on board with the EU the way Italy, France, Germany are, because they somewhat control that entity, and mostly it's controlled by Germany. And England has not added gold, you would think, because of the Brexit movement. Maybe the Bank of England would be in on the adding of gold, but it appears that the Bank of England is more tied to the European Union, is probably very anti-Brexit, so they haven't added any gold. Well, if England actually, the UK actually gets out of the EU, we'll probably see the Bank of England maybe bring on new leadership that might be more gold friendly. But right now it is significant, at least in my mind, that we're seeing Belarus, Hungary, Poland, and Serbia. These are not countries that have significant gold mining. They're buying clearly because they want it as a reserve. They don't trust the euro. They believe that it's a hedge against financial uncertainty. Whereas the Western central banks, the United States, and they may be buying gold too, they're just not reporting it, but they are not making public proclamations about why they need to buy gold as Serbia, Hungary, Poland, and Belarus. Now, we've heard from Serbia and Hungary and Poland as to why they're buying. We haven't really heard anything from Belarus, at least I haven't seen anything. And Russia, Putin, the president of Russia the other day, was mentioning the end of the dollar and all that other nonsense. But so we understand his motivations for buying gold. All right, let's now look at what Russia has been doing. As I mentioned, is very important, is Russia, it makes 100% sense. It's totally logical for Russia to buy gold. Indeed, they've got the third largest gold mining production in the world, mining over 200 tons, sometimes 300 tons of gold a year. They have no need to hold dollar reserves as they don't trade with the U.S. They can use the euro. A lot of their biggest trading partner is in Europe and then also in China, so they don't need a lot of dollars if the Europeans are willing to accept euro, which they are. And they don't like the dollar. They're under sanctions. So not only do they not have a lot of trade with the U.S. to begin with, they're actually antagonistic towards the United States. They're kicked out of the SWIFT system. So it doesn't make much sense for them to hold dollars. And it makes sense for them to add gold. And indeed, they've been adding it. And what this chart shows is over the last few years, especially the last 2 years, they added 80, 86, and 86% respectively through the years 2016, 17, 18 of their overall domestic gold mining production into their central bank. So, for example, in 2016, they mined 250 tons of gold. They added about 200 tons of that gold to the central bank. In 2017, they mined about 260 tons. They added 224 tons of gold to their central bank. And last year, they mined about 314 tons, and they added 271 of those tons to the central bank. The rest of the gold was sold to China and a little bit to India, and I think this year they're going to sell a bit more to India. Now, it does seem that Russia is slowing its gold purchases. I'll show you what I mean. So far this year, and it's been not a bad year, they've added 137 tons of gold. You know, at this pace, it's only November and December. Maybe they add another 20, 30 tons of gold. They're not really going to add, they might not even hit 200 tons of gold a year. Now, that's still going to be a lot of gold if they add 150, 160 tons of gold. But it's not like last year where they had 271 tons. And I suspect that's because they did announce last year that they were going to be selling more gold to India. And I think at some point Russia's going to slow its gold purchases and going to continue to add. But their reserves right now, their gold reserves are about 20% of overall reserves. They've effectively sold off most of their U.S. treasuries. They used to have about $80, $90 billion worth. They now have $107 or $108 billion worth of gold. Now, that's not a lot of money when you think about it. It's a lot of gold, but so they'll probably still add gold, but it seems like they're also getting some foreign trade bang by exporting some gold to China and India. So this chart, you can see it on Smaulgld.com, displays Russian gold additions and subtractions from 1994 to 2019. The next chart we're going to look at is just overall Russian gold reserves, the increase, that big increase from June 2015 of 1,281 tons all the way up to 2,252 tons. Very consistent, inexorable climb. And as I mentioned, they probably will end up with over 25 tons in the next couple of years and pass France and Italy and take the number 3 spot right behind Germany. And that's really because, as I mentioned, the Western European central banks have thrown their lot in with the fiat game and they're not adding gold. And so their gold reserves are stagnating while Russia's are on the increase. And finally, let's take just a look at what Russia does each month. I've been charting this since way back since 2013 and 14, and you can see the most recent month is 300,000 tons. It's not one of the bigger months, but some months they buy over a million ounces of gold. But you can see almost every month they do add gold. There's been a couple of years where at the end of the year, the last month, they don't buy any. And I think that's pretty much because they exhausted their budget for the year. And but they've really been buying gold every month since, it looks like 2016 in January. They've been buying every month without pause, at least 200,000 tons, all the way up ounces, all the way up to about 1.2 million ounces. All right, that's what I got for tonight, but I think it is significant that other Eastern European central banks are buying gold, and they're explicitly stating for financial reasons, not because it's convenient, it's not because we don't like the dollar, it's not because we've got gold in our backyard, it's because they don't like the euro and they don't like the economic circumstances, and they view gold as a good hedge against economic uncertainty, and they seem to be indicating that they think that we are ripe for some type of event. And these events do happen every 10, 20, 30 years. So I haven't been calling for financial crisis. I mean, there's entire channels that's all they're devoted to every week. Financial crisis this, financial crisis that, economic collapse, dollar collapse, gold set to skyrocket. Now, the reason you do have, and the reason countries do hold gold, and I wrote an article maybe 7 years ago about the importance of gold, is for financial insurance against financial calamity. So it makes sense that central banks would be adding gold in Eastern Europe. And also you have to remember that Eastern European central banks have far less gold than France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, and the like. So they have some catching up to do if they're going to be independent entities, and they're going to want to weather out any type of financial storm on their own. All right, let's see what you guys are saying in the comment sections. And if we got any, let's see, I don't see any comments, and there's something wrong with that. There they are. Okay. Pablo Pena is here. Ann is here. Pablo says, I've been hearing China has 20,000 tons of gold. Any benefit for a country to keep their gold reserves low-key? Not really. I mean, that's just gold pumper nonsense, Pablo. I've covered this, and you should know this. We've covered this many times. I've shown you the charts where I have calculated that within China, there's clearly, just like within India, about 25,000, 30,000 tons. The whole gold pumper narrative is that somehow it all belongs at the Chinese central bank, but they're playing some type of Sun Tzu deception by keeping their... It's a bunch of nonsense. China clearly mines 450 tons of gold a year. So whatever they say, they have 1,950 tons of gold on the Central Bank of China, the People's Bank of China's balance sheet, means that they just don't hold all of the gold that's in China on the People's Bank of China's balance sheet. Just like India. India's Reserve Bank of India only has 680 tons worth of gold listed. That's because it's the gold in India is not on the Reserve Bank of India's balance sheet, just like in People's Bank of China. So the central bank, governor of the Central Bank of China said that the gold in the country is held at other official entities. I had an article published on this in Zero Hedge, and I had an article when they first reported their gold reserves since 2009 and 2015 on Zero Hedge that, yes, there's a lot of gold in China, and we can calculate approximately by taking their imports. We can look at their gold mining production and clearly determine that there's more gold in China than on the People's Bank of China's balance sheet. But that doesn't mean that they're lying. I mean, they could be lying about everything, but the point is, just because a country has within its borders a certain amount of gold doesn't mean that they're fudging the numbers. China's even said there's gold at other subsidiary banks of the People's Bank of China, other state-owned banks in China, other state-owned sovereign wealth funds with wealthy individuals, party officials, and of course the people themselves have gold. So this idea that China is doing some type of Sun Tzu deception and it's going to be game over and they're going to roll their gold out into a stadium, that is such a nonsense. It's up there with there's no gold at Fort Knox type of hype story that just seems to be taken as fact by a lot of gold pumpers and their followers. All right. Fiona Whale and Smaulgld, do you know by any chance what is the status of sanctions from hell which are supposed to cut Russia off on Swiss? It was last year announced. Lindsey Graham said they were coming. I think they are cut off. I'm pretty sure that Russia's cut off from the SWIFT system. Russia basically has no ties to the U.S. Russia can deal with Iran and China however it wants and probably does. The idea that they may use gold to transact, I have no evidence that they do or don't, but I wouldn't doubt if Russia ran up against any type of resistance to any trading partner saying, we don't want rubles, we want gold, that Russia might transact in gold. Russia also does have dollars. Remember, they sold off their treasuries, but they still have dollars, and they do conduct business in dollars. But Russia's on its own. Russia is de-dollarized, and Russia has basically created an economy where they can get by with selling oil and agricultural products to Europe and elsewhere. They've been very lucky that they've been able to do that. I don't think Russia's in any better or worse shape than they were before or after the sanctions because they had already not been a big trading partner with the United States. Their economy is what it is. I mean, it hasn't really, they've got inflation, but it's not that bad. They basically prudently have dealt with the hand they've been given, and their economy is not like China's, where it's based on a lot of foreign exporting and a lot of debt creation. Russia is based on exports, but it's not based on debt creation. It's not based in fact, I think their foreign external debt is very close to the amount of foreign reserves they have. They have about 600 billion in foreign reserves, and they have about $1 trillion in foreign debt last I checked. So they're not really like China has 70, 80 trillion in debt, and it has like 3 trillion in foreign reserves. So it's a totally different kettle of fish there in India. I mean, in Russia versus China. Pablo, I'm Canadian. Why isn't Canadian buying gold? Is it because there's plenty in the ground? That's another gold pumper nonsense thing. When you mention that Canada sold off all of its gold, whoa, but they got it in the ground. A lot of countries have gold in the ground. That does you no good. They sold it because they don't believe in it. They sold it because they think that being a vassal of the United States and being part of the whole system, they don't need gold. And in fact, this is the odd thing. Kazakhstan, as you know, we talk about Kazakhstan. It's got like 60% of its reserves in gold. Has a horrible currency. The Russian ruble is a horrible currency. When I say a horrible currency, I mean versus the dollar, it's not doing very well. And as far as being a sovereign credit, very bad. This is junk. Canada, however, has a AAA rating. It's one of the few countries that has a AAA. It has a higher rating than the United States, and it doesn't have any gold. People that follow the gold markets overestimate the value of gold in the international monetary system. It's not how much gold you have that makes how valuable your currency is. I'll repeat it. It's not how much gold you have that makes how valuable your currency is. It doesn't matter what the situation is. So, for example, pull up a country here. Okay, Tajikistan. 76% of its reserves are in gold. Cyprus, 65% of its reserves are in gold. You do not want the Cyprus or Tajikistan currency. And yet, there are other countries. Look at Russia has 20%, and its currency is no good. The amount of gold that you have has nothing to do with your country's currency. Countries' currencies are on the basis, or valued on the basis, as Nixon said, on the strength of the economy. When Nixon ripped up the Bretton Woods agreements on TV, made a lot of famous quotes, how he was temporarily suspending the convertibility of central banks that were signatories to the Bretton Woods agreements to bring their dollars to the United States Treasury and get gold at $35 an ounce. He said he was temporarily suspending that. We haven't seen it since 1971. But he also said that dollar's value isn't based on the fact that it's matched by gold. It's based on the strength. No, he actually said a nation's currency is based on the strength of its economy, and the United States economy is the strongest in the world. He was setting the stage for basically saying fiat currencies are now the way we're going to go. We're not going to back our currencies, and the strength of those currencies are going to be on the basis of the strength of the economy, and the U.S. is the strongest. And that's basically how it's been. You may agree or disagree, but the idea that a country has a lot of gold doesn't really help. It doesn't hurt, but it doesn't boost the currency. And Canada has no gold and has had no trouble really keeping its currency as one of the premier currencies. It's less than $1, but Canada wants to borrow money. It's considered a short bet. AAA. All right, let's see what else. Dan SPL, gold just gapped up $3, open due to Senate backing Hong Kong protesters. Well, backing Hong Kong, but gapped up $3. That's 0.22%. But backing Hong Kong protesters is probably making it less likely that there will be a Chinese deal. Now, there's this whole nonsense, and we've been following it all year. Remember when we said, is the gold and silver rally over for the year? And I kind of think it is, and we won't get started again until maybe the end of the year-end Santa Claus rally going into January, because there's generally a rally in the precious metals if they're going to have one in January. But part of the rally has been due to, and I think it's just short-term trading, but it turned out to be kind of a meme this year, that gold would go up when it looked like there wasn't going to be a deal with China. Doing a deal with China doesn't settle the global macro issues of debt and negative interest rates. Those are the real reasons that gold and silver rose this year. But they did rise on this, or on trading days when it looked like there wasn't going to be a Chinese-U.S. deal, and then the price fell when it looked like there was going to be one. So, yeah, if you got U.S. backing Hong Kong protesters, then China's going to say, hold on there, Jose, we're not going to do a deal if you're going to do this, and that adds complications to making it less likely there will be a deal, and that is gold positive. But, again, it's up $3 after market. It's not a big deal. Tossing Molotov says here, what does he got to say for himself? China removes heads of business, replacing with party members. Yep. Dan SP, problem also Canadian. The answer is simple because the government does not listen to Smaulgld. Yeah. Well, the Canadian government, who's in charge of the Canadian government? Man dressed in blackface. I mean, what's his name? Trudeau. I mean, you can't expect that guy and his cabinet to have any sense of economic sense. So, but I don't even think it was his government. Maybe it was. It was only done a couple of years ago. They sold off their last ounce. So, who knows? All right, everyone. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining me tonight. And I'll talk to you soon. If you enjoyed this program or any of the other Smaulgld programs, please consider becoming a Smaulgld Subscribe Star member or a Smaulgld Patron member. Really helps out the channel because at least it gives some certainty as to what I can count on coming in from the channel, or you can send a one-off donation or recurring donation via PayPal, or you can send Bitcoin or Litecoin or items of value to Smaulgld LLC, PO Box 714, Dover, New Hampshire 03820. Or you can also help the channel out by clicking on the affiliate links, not just to click on them to get pay-per-click, because that's not what they are. They are links that will lead you to precious metal sites or to, I think, wine.com and place where you can buy storable food or coffee and precious metals. And if you click on those links and you buy from those sites, Smaulgld gets a small commission. So that does help the site out. You don't have to donate if you do that, because I actually get paid a commission each time you buy something from those sites. And then, of course, you can always become a Smaulgld mug stacker. Selling some mugs again recently. Smaulgld mugs. Mugs are real wealth. If you like hard assets, mugs are included in that, especially Smaulgld mugs. And you can buy those directly at the links below this BitChute, this YouTube, or best place to go to smaulgld.com. You'll see all the offers, how to donate, what to buy, what you can buy. So thank you very much for joining me tonight, and we'll see you soon. Let's see if I haven't done the countdown in a while because I don't have the money to pay Bernie or Seamus or Mario or any of our other people. All right. Let's see. I think that's it. So no countdown tonight, and we will see you tomorrow. Maybe.